Welcome to Old School. I'm Kathunter for AT&T Blue Room Gaming, and we're here every week reminiscing on the games of our youth. But this week, we take a step out of the arcade and into your school's computer lab. The Oregon Trail is an educational game that used the realities of 19th century pioneer life to teach us resource usage as well as a few hard-hitting history lessons. The first version was developed in 1971 for the teletype machine. However, the graphic-based version invaded our computer labs in 1985. We stopped to ask game editors what, if anything, they actually learned.
Oregon Trail it's one of my favorite games ever because it was the only one I was ever allowed to play at school.
Oregon Trail was, that was one of those games you kind of just put in together with games like King's Quest and Carmen Sandiego, it was basically, I played that at school. I mean, that was like the game we always played at school.
I do remember back when I was in elementary school in our computer room, it was constantly being played on the Apple IIs, that really dates me if our computer rooms had Apple IIs.
I don't know what the educational value was.
In the Oregon Trail, you take on the role of a banker or blacksmith, name the people in your party, set your departure time, buy a few necessities, and you're off to claim new territory, as well as a few hard lessons about life.
My memories of Oregon Trail are we had one of them on the Apple IIe my mom bought us.
I was never any good at it. I never made it to Oregon. I think now I live in California, so it's not that far a drive.
You have the whole Lois and Clark experience, and you obviously have to worry about getting typhoid or your whole family dying of some kind of scarlet fever or anything.
I didn't understand what dysentery was, but it kept killing everybody in my party. So I decided to go to the school library and look it up and ended up doing a whole report on dysentery in the third or fourth grade. And I just remember how disturbed my teacher was that I would do this whole report on how dysentery was where you to death, pooped.
When you're a little kid, it's kind of a little traumatic at times because your family members start dying off. But for me, it was just a fun learning experience. It was a great educational video game.
There was so much about that game that was teaching you things about how hard it was to be an American settler back then, but it never really got really hardcore. The really hardcore settlers ate each other.
And I didn't even know where Oregon was, but all I knew was it was really far and it was really hard to get to.
Oregon Trail sought both to educate and entertain, and while it may not have taught us how to survive in the wilderness, it did teach us to love video games.
I had two paths at that point then, gamer or doctor, and it just turns out, I'm not actually very smart.
I learned a lot about geography, and I learned a lot, that you have to take certain precautions, like you can't cross a river that's 20 feet deep in a wagon, or you'll sink and die. Me, I always just kind of like to live on the edge.
They don't sell that anymore, or if they do, it's like Oregon Trail 8, and it's fancy graphics. I don't want that. I want the, extremely Atari-looking graphics. I want 1988.
It was interesting, but it was too much, I guess, education for me, to have fun. And, I'd much rather play the games that you didn't learn anything.
I probably still could get a pretty good deal on some oxen and be able to ford a river. So if I can't find a bridge, because you run a big risk looking for a bridge. So, yeah, but that was Oregon Trail.
And that's all for this week's Old School.